If you'd walked into our house at 6 a.m. any weekday morning, you'd think we were rehearsing a sitcom. Dad, keep it down, folks. We don't want to wake the trash man. Cue laugh track. Mom, should we leave a banana peel on his pillow? Audience applause. My older brother Jeremy? Always the punchline king. Hey bro, find any treasures in the dumpsters last night? And there I was. Exhausted. Dirty. Holding my thermos like a lifeline and pretending that joke number 412 still didn't sting like the first one. I never said anything. Not because I was ashamed. But because if I had said something, it would have come out as, I'm doing the best I can while living in your basement and eating expired ravioli. Not exactly a mic drop. Let's rewind a bit. I didn't grow up wanting to work nights for sanitation. I didn't even grow up wanting to stay in this town. But life has a way of shoving your dreams into a drawer marked, someday, and then stacking a mortgage, debt, and your dad's beer collection on top of it. I was never the star kid. That was Jeremy. Varsity athlete. Interned at dad's marketing firm. Dated the homecoming queen who wore fake glasses to look relatable. My parents once framed his thank you card from a client. It hung in the hallway. I got a certificate for most improved attendance in trade school, and it went straight into the junk drawer next to expired coupons and mystery keys. I wasn't bitter. Okay. I was a little bitter. But I kept it quiet. When I finished trade school at 22, I applied for everything: HVAC, electrical, plumbing, you name it. But the calls weren't coming fast enough, and I had rent to help cover. So when the city sanitation department offered me a position, I took it. Night shifts. Full coverage. Union benefits. Decent pay. Was it glamorous? Nope. Was it honest work? Absolutely. But to my family? It was punchline material. My dad would joke about the smell when I walked through the door. Mom once made me eat in the garage after a bad night. Jeremy used to tell people at parties I worked in urban excavation. He thought it was clever. And the worst part? They loved telling people I was still figuring things out. Like I was some toddler trying to color inside the lines instead of a grown man keeping their trash cans from overflowing every Monday. It got worse at holidays. I'd walk into a room full of business suits and cologne, and they'd ask, "Still picking up the scraps?" "Yup," I'd say. "And your bonus checks too?" They didn't laugh at that one. But they also didn't stop. That was the thing about my family. They didn't mean to be cruel, they just thought sarcasm was personality. And since Jeremy was the one who'd take over the family business someday, I was allowed to be the punchline. Except, I wasn't planning to stay the punchline forever. I saved. I learned. I networked, quietly, like a raccoon with a retirement plan. I picked up certifications. Started a side gig cleaning commercial dumpsters for small businesses. Then I added deep cleaning restaurant grease traps. Then I partnered with a buddy to subcontract city jobs. Within 4 years, I wasn't just working for sanitation. I was sanitation. My own crew. My own trucks. My own business. But I never told my family. They were too busy laughing. I was too busy building. There's this moment when a business stops being a side hustle and starts becoming real. For me, it happened at 3:42 a.m., halfway through pressure washing a rancid alley behind a sushi place that smelled like dead seaweed and broken promises. My phone buzzed. It was a transfer from a bar downtown. $500. 1 hour of work. I stared at the screen, soaked in fish water and wearing gloves that had given up on being waterproof, and whispered, "Holy crap. I'm not broke anymore." By the time I turned 27, I had a crew of 3, a logo, a lawyer, and a truck fleet I named after my favorite 90s action stars. Stallone, Van Damme, Norris, those boys hauled junk with honor. My company, Grimeline, specialized in nasty jobs, commercial trash outs, biohazard cleanup, deep sanitizing. You know, the kind of work that made other guys gag and me money. But to my family, I was still the trash man. Thanksgiving came around, and as usual, the Dalton table was full of gourmet stuffing, passive aggression, and Jeremy talking too loud about things no one asked. "Hey, bro," he said, slicing into turkey like he invented poultry. "You ever find, like, a gold necklace or something in someone's trash? You could be like a raccoon Robin Hood." I smiled. "Nah. But I once found a broken Roomba and a nearly full bottle of Johnny Walker Blue in the same dumpster. Fixed one. Drank the other." Jeremy blinked. Mom laughed nervously. "Honey, you don't have to make things up. It's okay to be humble." Dad added, "It builds character, doing the night shift. At least you're working hard." The tone was always the same, condescending but charitable. Like I was some kid mowing lawns for allowance. Like I wasn't pulling in more monthly than their mortgage. See, they still didn't know. They thought I was clocking in for the city job. They didn't know I'd gone private. That my company had contracts with half the restaurants in the county. That I'd just submitted a bid to clean the local hospital's hazardous waste tanks. I wasn't hiding it. I just wasn't handing it to them. Because if I'd told them, they would have twisted it into their narrative. Claimed I got lucky. Or learned business from watching Jeremy. Or worse, tried to take credit. No. This was mine. Mine like the calluses on my hands. Mine like the stressed knots in my shoulders. Mine like the silent nights I spent drawing up contracts while they slept, dreaming of golf and their next marketing campaign. The first real shift in our dynamic didn't come from me. It came from them. Jeremy's company, the family business, Dalton and Company. Marketing started slipping. Slowly at first. A couple of big clients pulled out. Their digital strategy was just a Facebook page and a wish. Meanwhile, newer firms were offering targeted ads and TikTok campaigns. One night, I heard Dad pacing the kitchen at 2 a.m., whispering about bridge loans and delayed receivables. And I'll be honest, a small part of me smiled. Not because I wanted them to fail, but because for once, I wasn't the struggling one. Around that same time, I bought a small commercial lot downtown. Rundown building, great location. Foreclosed property listed as in need of heavy cleanup. I signed the papers, walked through the dusty office, and stopped cold. The mail slot said, Dalton and Company. Satellite office. It used to be theirs. Not anymore. Now it was mine. I stepped out onto the sidewalk, stared at the sign, and whispered, "Don't wake the trash man." After I'd bought the old Dalton and Company satellite office, I didn't gut it right away. No, I had it cleaned. Professionally. By my crew. I stood across the street as they pulled up in our branded truck, grime lines green and gray colors loud against the crumbling brick. They didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. One of them pointed at the faded Dalton and Company on the door and muttered, "This is yours?" I nodded. He whistled. "Damn. Must be a story behind that." "Yeah," I said, folding my arms. "But I'm saving it for the memoir." The weirdest part wasn't owning their building. It was how small it felt now. The conference room where they once held marketing pitches that made them feel like madmen? It had a hole in the drywall and mouse droppings under the window. The fancy espresso machine Jeremy used to brag about. Still there. Unplugged, dusty, and surrounded by expired K-cups. There was even a framed motivational quote on the wall. "You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate." I didn't touch it. I just stared at it for a long time, then left it hanging, like a ghost of their own arrogance. Meanwhile, back at home? Things were cracking. Jeremy was quieter at dinners. Mom stopped bringing up his client wins. Dad snapped at the dog for barking during a commercial. Something about the economy. Or inflation. Or Gen Z not respecting hustle culture. I didn't say much. Just nodded along, made polite sounds, and passed the potatoes. But I noticed the signs. Jeremy took a call outside, then came back and rubbing his eyes. Mom mentioned they'd paused the lease on the downtown office for financial streamlining. That's what she called it. Financial streamlining. Funny. That lease hadn't been paused. It had been terminated. By me. 3 weeks after the cleaning, I had a local contractor rework the space. Polished concrete floors. New paint. Better lighting. One clean, minimal office. My office. But I didn't put my name on the door. Not yet. What I did do? I forwarded their remaining Dalton and Company mail, unopened, to their home address with a little sticky note that said, "This was left at your old office. Figured it might be important." No signature. Just that. Jeremy must have opened it because the next day, my mom called and left a voicemail. "Hey sweetheart, weird question, but do you know anything about the downtown space where Jeremy's team used to work? The landlord's changed or something. Just checking in. Hope you're well." I didn't call back. I just forwarded a scanned image of the new deed. The one with my name. Jeremy didn't say anything for a week. Then I saw him in the driveway one night, standing outside his car, hands on his hips like he was trying to contain a meltdown. I walked up slowly, sipping from my old thermos, the same one they used to joke about. He looked at me, eyes sharp. "You bought it?" "Yep." "You knew it was ours?" "I did." He was quiet for a second, like he wanted to yell but couldn't find the volume knob. Then, "Why?" I shrugged. Needed a place for the trucks. And I figured the old office already knew how to handle garbage. He blinked. I smiled. Guess it's full circle. Then I walked inside and left him standing in the cold, like I used to, listening to them laugh while I scrubbed alleyways behind diners. Jeremy always had this thing about bouncing back. In high school, when he lost student body president to a kid who wore Crocs unironically, he printed his own "Leadership isn't elected, it's lived" t-shirts and handed them out at lunch like he was building a movement. He got suspended. When his first post-college startup failed, he threw a pivot party. Had themed cupcakes that said, "Fail fast, rise faster." He also cried in the garage for 3 hours after no one invested. So I knew that once the downtown office slipped out from under him, he'd try something dramatic. And oh boy did he. A month after I quietly forwarded them the deed, he launched a rebrand. Gone was Dalton and Company. Now it was Dalton Creative, with a font so aggressive it looked like it was threatening to sue me. He posted a selfie in front of a co-working space, captioned, "New beginnings. Same grind. Bigger vision." I gave it a like. I'm not petty. Just patient. From what I could tell, he had 2 interns. One was his fiancée's cousin, and a part-time web guy. He kept saying they were nimble. Which, in corporate speak, means, we have no idea what we're doing, but we're doing it fast. He started calling clients, or rather, former clients, trying to win them back. What he didn't know. One of them had already signed with Grimeline. Yeah. Weird, right? Turns out they ran a few chain restaurants and needed post-renovation cleanup across 6 locations. Guess who got the contract? The trash man. At Sunday dinner, Jeremy came in unusually chipper. He wore a blazer that didn't quite fit and tried to flash his Apple Watch like it was a Rolex. "Big news," he said, carving into roast beef like he was cutting a ribbon. "Dalton Creative's first major account. 6-location chain. Restaurants. Regional marketing. Full digital suite." Mom gasped like he just announced a Nobel Prize. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Dad gave a proud little nod, sipping wine. "Back on your feet. That's my boy." I didn't say a word. Just kept chewing. Because I knew something he didn't. The restaurants? They hated his old team. Said they overcharged and underdelivered. Said they didn't need TikTok ads. They needed someone who could scrub graffiti off the patio and haul out 3 years of junk. That's what I gave them. And what Jeremy didn't know was that his major account hadn't signed any final contracts yet. They were just taking his calls out of politeness. I saw the email thread. Because I was on the email thread. I didn't gloat. I didn't poke the bear. I just watched him spin himself into the same storm he always did, promising big, underestimating the grind, scrambling to look legit. By the time he hosted a launch party at a local brewery, the cracks were already showing. I got invited. The invitation was digital, loud, and full of corporate speak. Dalton Creative invites you to celebrate innovation, elevation, and transformation. Let's rewrite the rules, I replied. Sounds like someone got a Canva subscription. He replied with a thumbs up emoji. I showed up late. Clean jeans. Company polo. Drove one of the Grimeline trucks because I'd just come from a job. Jeremy gave me a hug, then whispered, "You didn't have to come from work, man. You could have, changed." I grinned. Why? I brought the most successful thing I own. The truck gets more business than your new intern. He laughed nervously. I wasn't joking. At the party, I met a guy from the restaurant chain. We'd emailed before, but never face to face. He pointed at my logo and said, "Grimeline. You guys saved our Lakewood location. Didn't realize that was you." Jeremy was mid-toast at that moment. I raised my glass of warm IPA and just said, "Yeah. Small world." By the end of the week, the restaurant deal goes to Jeremy. By the end of the month, Dalton Creative's website went offline. The Dalton house got real quiet after Dalton Creative flatlined. Not immediately, of course. At first, they just acted busy. Like they were too strategic to answer questions. Jeremy would toss out phrases like, "just reevaluating direction," or "diversifying revenue streams," which basically meant he had no clients and fewer ideas. Mom called it a transition phase. Dad? He pretended to read business books he found in the garage. The only person still working full-time was me. And that fact started to bother them. I noticed the shift one Friday night. I stopped by to drop off a box of my old stuff, the last of what I'd stored in their garage from when I lived there. Figured it was time. Jeremy opened the door in sweatpants and a branded hoodie that now felt like a cruel joke. "You, moving or something?" I handed him the box. "Nope. Just figured I shouldn't keep tools in a place that doesn't need fixing." He smirked. "You're not funny, you know." I'm not trying to be. Inside, the living room TV was off, which never happened. Mom sat on the couch reading a magazine she'd flipped 3 pages of in 30 seconds. She looked up. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" "Me? I'm great." That's when it really landed. They didn't know what to do with me if I wasn't struggling. A week later, Jeremy called me. It was awkward. Like he had to swallow his pride just to dial. "Hey, you got a minute?" I paused. "Sure." He got to it. "So, listen, I know things didn't go the way I thought with Dalton Creative. We're regrouping. Rebuilding. Might pivot to consulting." "Might?" "Well, yeah, we're keeping options open." "Got it. And I figured, since you've got that contract with the restaurant group and all, maybe there's synergy?" "Synergy?" "Yeah. Like, I could handle brand consulting, maybe digital presence, while your crew handles site work. Joint bid or something." He was pitching himself to me. The guy who once called me the raccoon with a paycheck was now trying to hop in my trash truck. I wanted to laugh. But I didn't. Instead, I said, "Tell you what. Send me a proposal." "A proposal?" "You know. Professional write-up. Project scope. Deliverables. The works." There was a long pause. I could hear him flipping through mental folders that hadn't been opened in months. Yeah. Of course." He never sent it. What did arrive was a text from Mom a few days later. "Hey honey, we're all so proud of how hard you've worked. Would love to have you over Sunday. Dad made ribs." I showed up late. Sat down at the table. For once, the jokes didn't come. "No trash man," remarks. "No snide. Don't track dirt inside." Just polite smiles, mashed potatoes, and soft questions. "How's the business? Got any new trucks? Still working with that restaurant group?" It was weird. Like being interviewed for a job I never applied for. Dad even raised his glass halfway through dinner and said, To Alex. The only one in this family who's had a solid year. I nearly choked on my corn. Jeremy stared at his plate like it insulted him personally. Mom, bless her selective memory, just smiled and said, "We always knew you'd find your way." That was when I realized something. They didn't remember who I used to be. The version of me they joked about? The basement-dwelling, thermos-carrying, night-shift ghost? He didn't exist anymore. And now that I wasn't the family disappointment, they didn't know how to talk to me. Later that night, Jeremy cornered me at the door. "You know Dad never said that to me." I shrugged. "He just did. You know what I mean." I didn't reply. Because the truth is, I didn't care anymore. They'd spent years laughing at my grind. Now they were clapping for the results. I didn't owe them closure. I didn't owe them comfort. I didn't owe them anything. 3 months later, Dalton and Company was officially dissolved. No rebrand. No pivot. No comeback. Just a quiet update in the business registry and one very awkward update. Emails sent to their remaining newsletter list of 17 people. Jeremy stopped posting online. His old rise and grind tweets vanished. So did the matching Instagram photos of him pretending to read the Wall Street Journal at cafes he couldn't afford anymore. Their house stayed the same, on the outside. But I started noticing the signs. A "for lease" sign in the front yard. Later replaced with "temporarily off market." Dad's truck got sold. The riding mower disappeared next. Their backyard garden went from curated to weeds and regrets. And the dog? Still there. But even he looked like he knew the vibe had shifted. One Tuesday morning, I got a call from my bank manager. "Hey, Alex. Just confirming the wire went through for the Oak Ridge property. You'll receive the official title transfer by Friday." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Thanks, Mel." The Oak Ridge property used to be their main office. Not the satellite I already owned, this was the building. The one Jeremy decorated himself. The one where he hung a massive custom logo above the lobby desk like he was Zuckerberg. And now? It was mine. Technically, it had been foreclosed and repossessed 6 weeks prior. No buyer came forward. No one could justify the square footage. But I could. Not because I needed it. Because I remembered every time they laughed when I walked through the door still wearing steel-toed boots. Every time they mocked the smell of engine degreaser. Every time they said, "You wouldn't understand, this is branding talk." I understood now. Branding is just reputation with polish. And mine had aged better. I didn't throw a party. Didn't make an announcement. Didn't even post about it. I just walked into that building one morning, keys in hand, and stood in the middle of the empty lobby. The place was hollow. Stripped of furniture. Echoes of once grand ambition. The glass sign that used to read Dalton and CO. Now hung crooked, like it knew it was out of work. I pulled out my phone. Snapped one photo. And sent it to Jeremy with one caption. "Grimeline HQ?" No response. A week later, Dad showed up. I wasn't expecting him. He pulled into our lot driving Mom's old Corolla, dressed in the kind of jeans he used to say were only for mowing lawns. He stood there a minute, staring at the building. I watched him through the front window of my office, the office that used to be his. Then he came in. Didn't knock. Just walked through the front door like he still owned the place. When he saw me behind the desk, he froze. "You kept the floors," he said. I nodded. "Didn't see a reason to tear up history." He laughed, once. Bitterly. "I remember when you came home reeking of ammonia and we joked about you being radioactive." "Yeah," I said. "I remember." He sat down. Not invited. Just plopped into the guest chair like gravity was too heavy that day. "Jeremy's thinking of moving," he said eventually. "To where?" "His fiancée's parents have space in Florida." That explained the silence. He didn't say much after that. Just looked around. This place was supposed to be his. Was it? That landed harder than I expected. He didn't argue. Didn't defend. Just sighed. Then, "We didn't think you'd make it, Alex." That's the truth. You were quiet. Messy. You worked weird hours. You didn't shine. I wasn't trying to shine, I said. I was trying to survive. He nodded. Got up. Didn't apologize. Didn't congratulate me. Just said, nice floors. Again, and left. And that? That was more satisfying than any revenge speech I could have given. No yelling. No I told you so. Just a man walking out of a building he lost, and realizing his son bought it with garbage money. Poetic, really? By the time Jeremy packed his bags for Florida, nobody said the word, trash man, anymore. Not in jest. Not in whispers. Not even behind closed doors. It was like the phrase got retired, like an old jersey hung in the rafters of family shame. But I remembered. I remembered every time I came home reeking of work, and they opened windows like I was carrying a disease. I remembered when Jeremy once joked, "You should leave a Yelp review for every dumpster you crawl in. 5 stars, smells like home." I remembered all of it. And now? Now they remembered me. After Dad's visit, I made a decision. I wasn't going to make Grimeline's HQ in the old Dalton and Company office. It was too big for us, too polished. And honestly, I didn't want to work inside a monument to someone else's failed ego. But I wasn't selling it either. Instead, I cleaned it out. Repainted the walls. Swapped the lights. Left the glass Dalton and CO sign where it was, but had my team etch a smaller plaque underneath that read, "Property of Grimeline Holdings Incorporated." That was enough. A quiet reminder. A footnote that said, "The trash man owns the building now." A few weeks later, I got an inquiry through a local business agent. A startup marketing firm wanted to rent the space. The founder was some 25-year-old with big hair and a bigger ego. His pitch deck had more gradients than actual numbers. But the check cleared, and that's what mattered. He walked through the place with stars in his eyes. "This used to be Dalton and Company, right? My uncle interned here back in the day." I nodded. "Yeah. They were pretty big. Once." He tapped the glass logo and laughed. "You ever meet the guys who ran it?" I smiled. "Briefly." He stuck out his hand. "Well, we'll do better." I shook it. "Hope so. Trash tends to pile up fast if you're not careful." He didn't get it. But I did. At the next family dinner, the first one in a while where the table wasn't awkwardly set for Jeremy, Mom asked if I could help her figure out a plumbing issue. "The sink's been backing up," she said, hands folded like she was asking a priest for absolution. "I can send my crew," I replied. "Oh, I didn't mean," she started. "But I run a business, Mom. I don't work for free." Dad coughed into his napkin. She nodded. "Of course. Of course." I sent the crew the next morning. They fixed it. And left the invoice on the counter with a smiley face and the words, "Trash Man Plumbing Division, we clean what others won't." The weirdest part was how polite everyone became. Polite in that overly careful, too nice way people act around someone who now holds the power they used to have. At one point, Mom brought out a photo album and tried to show me pictures of us growing up. "Remember this? You and Jeremy on the trampoline?" I looked at the picture. Jeremy was midair, doing a flip. I was blurry in the corner, cleaning up dog poop with a bag over my hand. "Fitting." "Yeah," I said. "I remember." She kept smiling, but her eyes didn't. By fall, I'd tripled Grimeline's accounts. We had 2 more trucks, 6 full-time employees, and a new slogan. "We don't flinch." That one came from a Yelp review where a client said, "They showed up on time, cleaned 3 feet of raccoon sludge, and didn't flinch." I printed it on t-shirts. The crew loved it. One morning, I stopped by the old Dalton building to check on the tenants. The new firm had moved in, painted their logo over one wall, and were filming social media reels like their lives depended on it. I stood in the back, arms crossed, watching them flail around with ring lights and buzzwords. Then I left. As I walked to my truck, a delivery driver caught me. "Hey, you the landlord here?" "Yeah." He whistled. "Not bad. Fancy tenants. I smiled. Thanks. It used to be mine. He blinked. Oh. You used to run a marketing firm? I shook my head. Nah. I just collected their garbage. It was Christmas Eve when I got the call. From Mom. Of course. Hey honey, we're having a small dinner. Thought maybe, if you're not too busy. I wasn't. But I let the pause hang for a second longer than usual. Sure, I said. I'll stop by. When I got there, Jeremy wasn't around. Florida, supposedly. Or avoiding eye contact with his own future. Either way, the guest list was short. The house was smaller too. They'd downsized into a cozy two-bedroom after the finances caught up. The kind of place with fake wood panels and real humility. Dinner was quiet. Too quiet. Like we were all trying not to notice the ghosts in the room. Then Dad raised his glass, again, but this time it wasn't a toast. It was a confession. You know, Alex. I didn't get it before. Why you did it. The late shifts. The cleaning. All of it. I looked up. He wasn't smirking. Not this time. But now, he continued. Now I see. You weren't picking up trash. You were building something. Quietly. While we laughed like idiots. Mom gave him a quick nudge under the table, like too much. But he didn't stop. You didn't talk big. You just did the work. And now, well, now we work for landlords like you. It landed like a thud on the tablecloth. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. After dessert, Mom pulled me aside while Dad dozed on the couch in that chair he once said was too cheap for the old house. You're doing well, huh? I am. You happy? I thought about it. About the cold mornings. The stink. The crawl spaces. The checks. The ownership. The silence. Yeah, I said. I sleep fine. She looked like she wanted to say more. Maybe even apologize. But instead, she just patted my arm and smiled in that vague maternal way, like we were both pretending this conversation had always been easy. I left before midnight. Walked out into the freezing night and exhaled a cloud of breath that felt lighter than ever. Climbed into my truck, the same one they used to call the garbage wagon. Now clean, branded, paid off, and damn near luxurious compared to where I started. The radio kicked on. Classic rock. Fuzzy reception. Didn't matter. I pulled away slowly, past the old neighborhood sign, and rolled down the window for just a second. The air was crisp. My hands were calloused. My life was mine. And somewhere in the rearview mirror, I swear I heard my own voice, the one they used to mock, whisper back with a grin. Don't wake the trash man.